After 3 years abroad, her spouse came back, accompanied by his lover and their young boy. Without a word, she presented him with the divorce documents and departed, clutching her hidden wealth. For those endless 3 years of anticipation, Aaliyah Thurston had imagined Darius Sterling's return as a triumphant hero. Yet when Darius finally stepped through the door, he introduced his paramour and their offspring into the very residence they had once envisioned building a life in. She shed no tears. She refrained from shouting or pointing fingers. Instead, she calmly set the executed divorce agreement and the property title on the polished mahogany table in the living room. Unbeknownst to anyone, this lady, frequently belittled by elite circles as nothing more than a pampered spouse, was actually the enigmatic creator of Phoenix Thread, a prestigious label specializing in upscale couture. Her assets were vast enough to rattle the foundations of New York City itself. The evening of his infidelity marked her own profound renewal, as she shed her history with a composed grin and a prosperity that would soon captivate the globe. Aaliyah glanced at the clock on the wall. Evening had arrived at 7 wok. The savory scent of tender braised short ribs in a Merlot sauce, Darius's go-to dish, filled their lavish midtown Manhattan penthouse. On the dining table, a pot of gumbo still bubbled gently, paired ideally with wilted collard greens, sautéed alongside smoked turkey, arranged with exquisite care. It was all flawless, mirroring the devotion she had nurtured over the years. 3 years, 1,095 days. That was the span since Darius had ventured to Chicago for what he dubbed the venture of a lifetime. 195 solitary evenings she had spent in that grand space, yearning for his brief calls. He had vowed that this endeavor would catapult him to the pinnacle as the Northeast's foremost lead architect, granting her a future of effortless luxury. She had trusted his words, just as she had clung to their bond from their time together at Howard University. She stood up and approached the expansive window, staring out at the chaotic flow of vehicles on Park Avenue. The glow from neon signs danced across her refined features, revealing faint traces of weariness from the prolonged vigil, yet unable to conceal her innate gentleness. During those 3 years, she had adapted to handling it all by herself, from fixing dripping pipes and swapping out bulbs to seeking medical help alone after a bout of sickness. She had evolved from a protected girl into a fiercely self-reliant force. Still, at her core, she ached for the comfort of his arms around her. Today marked his homecoming. Just a week prior, his phone call had come through, laced with unexpected exuberance, declaring the initiative a smashing hit and that a promotion would bring him back to the main headquarters. "I'm heading home." Those unassuming words had set her pulse racing. Over the past 7 days, she had scrubbed every corner of the place, laundered the fabrics by hand, and devoted the whole afternoon today to crafting his beloved recipes. The chime of the doorbell shattered her reverie. Her pulse quickened. It had to be him. Drawing in a steadying breath to steady the surge of feelings, she rushed toward the entrance. She longed to welcome him with her brightest grin and the tenderest embrace. As she swung the door wide, there stood Darius, tall and imposing, his sharp-featured visage aged yet radiating achievement in his costly attire, far removed from the man of 3 years back. But the glance he cast her way felt off, shifty, and distant. Aaliyah's focus shifted swiftly from him, drawn instead to the figure trailing just behind, a woman with a soft, egg-shaped face and wide, innocent eyes that evoked vulnerability. She was clad in a spotless white gown. What truly stunned Aaliyah into stillness, however, was the toddler nestled in the woman's hold. The child, roughly 2 years of age, slumbered peacefully, his traits strikingly mirroring Darius's own. The moment hung suspended. The cozy vibe of the household chilled in an instant. Even the enticing fragrance from the kitchen failed to conceal the bitter tang of disloyalty that now hung heavy in the atmosphere. Darius coughed awkwardly, shattering the heavy quiet. He entered the space without looking her in the eye. "Aaliyah, meet Simone Hargrove, and this is Malik, my boy." Aaliyah remained silent. Her eyes wandered from the unfamiliar woman's expression to the dozing infant. "My boy." Those 4 syllables pierced her like sharpened blades, churning within. 3 years of patient endurance, traded for a rival partner and a concealed offspring. Simone bowed her head slightly, her tone quivering with contrived remorse. "Mrs. Sterling, please forgive me. I never meant to shatter your marriage." Darius scowled and drew Simone closer, shielding her like a guard. "No need for regrets. It's on me, Aaliyah. I realize this hits out of nowhere, but Simone gave so much for me during those 3 years in Chicago. She stood by me, bolstering my professional path, and the child deserves acknowledgement. They'll stay here moving forward. I trust you can accept that." He proceeded with an extended monologue, each phrase a justification for his actions and a complete disregard for her devotion. He anticipated tears, a dramatic outburst, jealousy from her like from any typical woman. Yet Aaliyah showed none of it. Her poise unsettled Darius deeply. No weeping, no accusations flowed from her. Instead, she regarded him quietly, her eyes profound and tranquil like a fall pond. That stare stirred remorse in Darius, while Simone instinctively clutched the baby closer without realizing. Aaliyah then pivoted deliberately and moved toward the bedroom. Darius and Simone shared a look, a brief spark of victory laced with contempt in their gazes. They assumed she'd resigned to her destiny, that an idle homemaker had no option but to bear it all. How mistaken they were. Moments afterward, Aaliyah reappeared. She held not a blade or luggage, but a dark blue binder. She approached the low table and set it down with care. Her tone rang out crisp and icy amid the hush. "Here's the divorce filing. I've already put my signature on it." She fixed her eyes on Darius's astonished features before delivering one last phrase, each word deliberate and sharp. "Sign it and leave my home." Quietude gripped the space. Darius gaped at the binder on the surface, then at Aaliyah's impassive visage, as though struggling to grasp what he'd just heard. "Leave my home." Fury surged in place of his first surprise. His sense of male ego felt crushed. "Aaliyah, what kind of trick is this?" he snarled, his voice blending fury and scorn. "Who do you believe you are, throwing me out? Take a look at your situation. You've idled away 3 years here with nothing to show. Every item in this place, from the tiniest ornament to the sofa, this lavish existence I built through my own sweat. Divorce. How will you even survive?" His barb struck at Aaliyah's recollections, forcing her to revisit scenes from before. That afternoon beneath the campus oaks, a youthful Darius in his crisp white shirt had clasped her hand, his gaze alight with dreams, whispering, "Aaliyah, one day I'll rise as a top architect. I'll construct the grandest home for you, and we'll share a joyful life together." Aaliyah had shone as the fashion design program standout back then. Her designs left instructors in awe. A bright path lay ahead. Leading ateliers vied for her talents prior to commencement. But for Darius's vow, for the passion she harbored for him, she relinquished it all. She rejected alluring propositions and stepped aside willingly, offering him steadfast backing so he might chase his ambitions undistracted. She trusted her yielding would pay off. When he landed the job in Chicago, he enveloped her in an embrace and vowed, "Hold on for merely 3 years. Just 3. Upon my return, I'll repay every bit." Year 1 brought daily phone chats, where he shared the strains and stresses of starting fresh in an unfamiliar place. She absorbed it all with patience, soothing and motivating him. By year 2, those conversations dwindled to a handful weekly. He blamed overload, endless sessions stretching into the night, unwilling to disturb her rest. In their stead, lavish presents arrived, haute couture purses, sparkling gemstone accessories. Yet Aaliyah left them untouched. She craved his presence, not lifeless luxuries. In the third year, calls numbered scarcely enough for one hand, each laden with shallow inquiries. His tone drifted further away each time. Her instincts as a woman signaled trouble. She'd convinced herself it stemmed from career demands alone. Yet inwardly, a fissure had started forming in her spirit. She'd pondered the direst possibilities, and that divorce document marked her readiness for this moment. What she hadn't foreseen was its arrival so raw and unmasked. The flood of flashbacks halted. Aaliyah snapped back to the present and eyed the figure standing there, the one she'd once adored wholly. No sorrow lingered in her stare, just a subtle edge of sarcasm. She skipped debating finances with him. Talk felt pointless anymore. Quietly, she glided to a timber cabinet tucked in the room's edge. From a compartment, she drew forth yet another safeguarded binder. She came back and laid it atop the divorce papers. "You're correct," she stated evenly. "All of this home's contents came from funds, though none of it yours." Darius's brow furrowed in bewilderment. "What rubbish is this?" Aaliyah offered no reply. With a graceful extended digit, she nudged the binder his way. "Examine its contents." Wary yet intrigued, Darius grasped it. Within lay a sheet faintly aged. Reading the title, his eyes narrowed sharply. It was the title deed. The listed locale matched their Park Avenue unit precisely. But the revelation that stole his air was the sole proprietor's name, boldly inscribed, Aaliyah Thurston. And at the base, the filing timestamp, June 15th, 7 years prior, the eve of their wedding. Darius froze rigid as stone. This very residence, which he'd long boasted as his achievement, the one he flaunted to his friends, the basis of his insistence on her obedience, had belonged to her well before their wedding. By law, it counted as her personal holding. He held no claim over it. He jerked his head up, gazing at her in utter astonishment. The smugness, fury, and smug pride evaporated from his features, replaced by sheer confusion and profound disbelief. He parted his lips as if to speak, yet an unseen grip seemed to strangle his voice. Not a syllable escaped him. A profound hush enveloped the space. The document rested on the surface like a quiet indictment of Darius's hubris. His complexion shifted from pale to sickly pale. Disorientation and embarrassment shone clearly in his stare. In that instant, Simone, who had lingered quietly at Darius's side, broke down in sobs. Streams of tears traced paths down her face. Her pitiful cries shattered the strained quiet. She advanced a step, fixing watery eyes on Aaliyah. "Mrs. Thurston, I realize this mess stems from my actions. I won't plead for your pardon or seek to shatter your home. All I wish is for my boy, Malik. He's blameless in this. He requires his dad. We're merely requesting a modest spot in this dwelling to raise him. I seek no formal status. Please show compassion for the little one." Her act was flawless. Each phrase, each movement radiated a deliberate fragility, portraying her as the ultimate sufferer. Darius, snapping out of his daze, seized on Simone's theatrics to steady himself and vent his wrath. He shoved her roughly out of the way and bellowed at Aaliyah with domineering tone. "Aaliyah, you're being heartless. Look how modest Simone is acting. She's only seeking shelter for my boy. Must you act so merciless? Don't assume that owning this flat gives you total control. Once we're split, how will you survive? A jobless woman who's spent years just handling chores and meals. Do you believe the world outside is forgiving? Lacking my support, you couldn't afford even basic daily eats." His bruised ego fueled ever harsher barbs. He'd erased their shared history from his mind. Nothing lingered but disdain for the partner he viewed as reliant on him. Aaliyah felt no rage, only amusement at the absurdity. Gradually, she raised her eyes. Her piercing look scanned Darius's outraged expression before settling on the hypocritical Simone. Silently, she pivoted and headed to their joint sleeping quarters. Darius figured his barbs had stung her into tears. A chilly grin formed on his mouth, but he erred yet again. Aaliyah flung open the expansive wardrobe and gestured to the left section, where sparse items of hers dangled. They featured muted shades, basic cuts, everyday materials. A few appeared threadbare. Their combined worth likely fell short of a single lavish meal for Darius at an upscale eatery. Then she yanked open the opposite panel. An entirely contrasting realm unfolded. Rows of high-end jackets, crisply ironed blouses, neatly arranged colorful silk neckwear. At the base, polished footwear gleamed alongside a case of rare timepieces that caught the light. His collection screamed wealth and extravagance. Aaliyah spun back, locking eyes with him squarely. Her tone stayed even, yet each term struck like a forceful impact against his torso. Darius, over these 3 years, beyond the routine monthly allowance for household needs, I've not touched a penny of yours for my own use. Examine my outfits, spot anything worthwhile. And yours, these jackets, these timepieces. Who funded them using your funds? I lack the authority to demand, but on whose basis do you school me in money matters? Her statements rendered him mute, his visage flushed with fury and mortification. It rang true. He routinely wired her a set sum, scarcely sufficient for utilities and essentials. All the while, he lavished cash on opulent items to project his thriving designer persona. He'd never imagined Aaliyah paying attention. Right then, his device buzzed. He snatched it like a rescue line. It was his mom, Mrs. Sterling. Upon picking up, her piercing tone exploded through. "Darius, my boy, I heard you're home. That Aaliyah's complicating matters for you. Darling, it's typical for guys to stray. As his spouse, she ought to show tolerance for the greater good. Assure her that if she plays nice, the Sterling clan will look after her. Remember, that kid's my blood." Before he could reply, Aaliyah seized the gadget. She held it against her head, her delivery chilled to the bone. "Mrs. Sterling, rest easy. I require neither your treasured offspring nor your kin. We'll handle our affairs independently." With that, ignoring any comeback, she cut the line sharply. She flung the device toward him. Her expression held zero warmth anymore. The air in the flat thickened, suffocating almost. The older woman's intervention marked the breaking point for Aaliyah's tolerance. She refused to linger another moment there amid such company. She retrieved her mobile and punched in a well-known number. Phone number: Camille Dixon, attorney at law. "Hello, Camille. This is Aaliyah Thurston," Aaliyah stated succinctly, her voice steady and unyielding. "Forward the divorce filing to Darius Sterling right away. Push forward with every step as fast as you can." "Got it," came the response from the line. The conversation wrapped up in moments. Aaliyah slipped her phone into her pocket and, without sparing a glance at the 2 frozen forms in the lounge, headed directly to the master suite. The noise of a luggage case unzipping and cabinets shutting echoed through. Darius and Simone exchanged uneasy glances. Simone, her face etched with concern, pulled at Darius's arm. "Darius, what on earth is she planning?" "She's putting on an act," Darius dismissed with a snort, his assurance returning. "What more could she possibly pull off? This is all bluffing. No way she'll actually walk out. And if she does, where to? Crash at a buddy's or slink back to her podunk hometown? A lady used to the high life won't last a few rough days before crawling back, pleading." Simone relaxed at his reasoning, her eyes on the bedroom door sparkling with a mix of satisfaction and scorn. Exactly. A stay-at-home wife for all those years, no cash or clout. How long can she keep up that bold front? Shortly after, Aaliyah stepped out, wheeling a compact bag. It was a 20-inch roller, appearing barely packed. She'd swapped her outfit for basics, plain denim pants and a crisp white top, her lengthy locks tied in a simple tail. She resembled a young scholar gearing up for a quick getaway, not someone freshly stung by spousal disloyalty. She left behind anything tied to Darius, skipping the lavish trinkets he'd gifted. She took solely her own belongings. Towing the case, she moved purposefully to the exit, eyes forward. The lavish meal remained steaming on the dining spread, now just a sour joke to her. As her fingers gripped the doorknob, Darius spoke in a patronizing tone. "Reconsider this. Once your fit passes and reality hits, return. I'll offer you one last shot." Aaliyah offered no words. Just a faint, barely noticeable curve touched her mouth. A shot. He still failed to grasp that she was the one who didn't need mercy. Click. The door shut, dividing their paths. Within, Darius and Simone shared a grin, convinced the spectacle had concluded and victory was theirs. Beyond, Aaliyah rode the lift upright, no trace of doubt. Upon hitting the lobby, she exited the upscale high-rise she'd called home for years. The evening breeze from New York carried a cool edge. She skipped taxis or transit stops, merely waiting poised at the curb. Within seconds, a sleek black Bentley arrived discreetly beside her. The back passenger side swung open, and a driver in a spotless suit emerged, inclining his head deferentially. "Miss Aaliyah, if you would, enter the vehicle." He lifted the modest luggage from her grasp and secured it gently in the boot. Aaliyah remained silent, giving only a subtle nod before easing into the opulent rear. The door sealed with a hush, shielding her from the bustling streets. The sedan moved smoothly, blending into the heavy flow. It veered away from downtown or humble suburbs, instead curving onto a shaded avenue leading to Greenwich Village, the priciest enclave in the city, where land rivaled gold in value. At last, it halted at the entrance to a grand old-world estate. The ornate wrought-iron entrance parted on its own, admitting the vehicle to a pristine garden enclosure. Aaliyah alighted, inhaling the crisp scent deeply. Here lay her real sanctuary. The sturdy oak portal of the house swung wide. A seasoned caretaker stood ready. "Glad you're back, miss," she greeted warmly. This wasn't merely Aaliyah Thurston's residence. It served as her studio, too, the birthplace of invaluable masterpieces, the hidden haven behind the label that shook fashion and art circles. Phoenix Thread. 3 days following Aaliyah's departure, Darius got a packet from the court. He tore it open carelessly, skimmed the notice and the formal separation request from the attorney, and a smirk crossed his face. He'd figured her outburst was temporary, that a bit of struggle would bring her running back. He hadn't anticipated her escalating to legal action. Big deal. A long-term homemaker without earnings. How could she challenge him? He'd toss her a minor payout out of pity and wrap it up swiftly. Embracing that smug outlook, Darius dialed his counsel, a Mr. Williams, expert in splits, and assured him he'd show for the initial session to uncover whatever schemes his soon-to-be ex might try. Camille Dixon's firm occupied the 35th level of a towering skyscraper. Nestled in the bustling core of the financial hub, the law firm's office boasted spotless glass facades and a sleek, upscale design that radiated sophistication and elite access. Darius stepped inside alongside his attorney, the opulent surroundings bolstering his conviction that Aaliyah had simply taken a loan to maintain appearances. Inside the conference area, a woman in her upper 30s sat poised, awaiting their arrival. She was dressed in a flawlessly fitted gray trouser ensemble, her hair neatly secured in a bun, subtle cosmetics enhancing her features, and eyes that pierced with razor-sharp intensity. This was Camille Dixon, representing Aaliyah Thurston. With a polite nod, Camille gestured for them to take seats, offering no further preamble. Mr. Williams, Darius's counsel, opened the discussion in a patronizing manner. "Ms. Dixon, we've reviewed Mrs. Thurston's filing. My client, Mr. Sterling, cherishes personal connections deeply. He prefers to avoid any nastiness. On the matter of property split, we're both aware that Mrs. Thurston hasn't held employment for several years, relying entirely on Mr. Sterling for her upkeep. Out of respect for their long union, Mr. Sterling is willing to offer a generous alimony arrangement. enough for her to lease housing and seek fresh employment. Camille Dixon absorbed his words quietly, her manicured fingers tapping rhythmically against the tabletop. Once Mr. Williams concluded, she responded with composed assurance. "Mr. Williams, it seems there's been a misapprehension. My client, Mrs. Thurston, seeks no alimony from Mr. Sterling whatsoever." Williams and Darius traded glances laced with astonishment and disdain. No financial aid at all. Did she intend to depart with nothing? Undeterred, Camille pressed on steadily. "Our requests are straightforward. Primarily, a swift dissolution of the marriage, grounded in undeniable proof of Mr. Sterling's infidelity." She advanced a folder brimming with images across the table. The snapshots captured Darius and Simone in compromising embraces in Chicago, including shots of them alongside young Malik coming and going from an upscale residential building. A subtle shift crossed Darius's features. He hadn't anticipated Aaliyah possessing such material. Next, Camille proceeded with the property concerns. "The residence on Park Avenue qualifies as my client's separate holding, purchased prior to their wedding, leaving no room for negotiation. That said, earnings generated by Mr. Sterling throughout the marriage count as shared assets. We insist on a fair apportionment as stipulated by regulations." Mr. Williams emitted a brief chuckle. "Ms. Dixon, surely you're not serious. While Mr. Sterling's earnings technically form marital assets, Mrs. Thurston has subsisted on those funds for years. A 50-50 split would leave her with scant resources. Mrs. Thurston ought to adopt a more practical stance. Opting for alimony would serve her interests better." Darius reclined in his seat, arms folded, a smug grin etched on his face. He observed Camille with evident delight, eager to witness the unraveling of her ploy. Camille remained unfazed, fixing her gaze on Mr. Williams with a faint, knowing curve to her mouth. "Very well. Let's address the facts plainly." She reached for her briefcase at her side, retrieving a substantially bulkier file. With deliberate care, she set it down and slid it toward Darius. "Mr. Sterling, you assert that my client relied on you for her very existence. Isn't that so? Kindly examine this." Darius's brow furrowed as he accepted the file out of intrigue. The opening sheet revealed a banking record. His gaze darted over the entries, halting at the closing total. The figure wasn't excessively lengthy, yet it caused his eyes to widen sharply, followed by 8 zeros. He flipped onward hastily. Another institution's ledger, another staggering sum, page after page blurred by under his scrutiny. His grip started to shake. Records of credit usage, bond portfolios, equity holdings, each disclosure landed like a forceful blow. Yet the revelations didn't stop there. Further down lay titles to real estate, a row house in Soho, retail property along Rodeo Drive, and a sprawling property in the Hamptons, everyone registered under Aaliyah Thurston's ownership. The ultimate revelation that shattered him entirely involved business stakes. Aaliyah Thurston controlled 70% of an entity named Phoenix Thread. Phoenix Thread, the title rang a bell. He'd overheard associate spouses referencing it. A premium apparel label famed for its exorbitantly priced, elusive hand-stitched silk creations, an emblem of elite circles. Silence enveloped the chamber utterly. Mr. Williams, seated nearby, stood frozen, his jaw slack in shock. Darius sensed a chill coursing through his bloodstream. His breaths came in ragged bursts. Raising his eyes to meet Camille's, he conveyed a blend of disbelief, confusion, fury, and an underlying profound dread. The spouse he'd long dismissed as mere homemaker, the one he deemed incapable of independence, was in reality a covert tycoon. The reversal hit with such abrupt ferocity that it left him utterly unprepared. As Darius grappled with this seismic inner turmoil in the attorney's quarters, Aaliyah inhabited an entirely separate realm. Her timeless residence in Greenwich Village transcended mere habitation. The second and third, the upper levels, had evolved into a refined atelier dedicated to artistry and precision. Gone was any hint of kitchen grease. Instead, a faint whiff of sandalwood mingled with the refined fragrance of premium silks. Sunbeams from the east poured in via expansive French doors, casting a glow on racks brimming with vibrant embroidery flosses that gleamed like a spectrum of light. Aaliyah had shed her everyday homemaker attire for a sophisticated silk gown in a hazy azure shade, the gentle material draped over her lithe yet voluptuous form. Her flowing locks were loosely secured with a simple wooden pin, revealing the poised curve of her neck. Without heavy cosmetics, she still projected an enchanting presence, a fusion of timeless artistic poise and the assured resolve of a visionary. Positioned in front of a grand embroidery hoop, she worked with fluid precision, directing the thread across a midnight black silk canvas. Under her touch, a vibrant phoenix emerged. Each plume appeared vividly lifelike, glowing with a luminous gold hue. Her focus halted the world around her. A young aide, Maya, slipped in softly, clutching a tablet. "Aaliyah, I hate to interrupt, but we've just received a major partnership offer." Maya avoided titles like director or chief. In this space, everyone addressed her simply as Aaliyah. A warm yet respectful nod. Aaliyah paused her stitching, though her gaze stayed fixed on the piece. "From who?" "The Sterling and Stone conglomerate," Maya replied, "a key player in upscale property and cultural investments. Their CEO, Mr. Quincy Davis, is a huge fan of Phoenix Threads creations. They're launching a fresh retail and gallery hub named the Pinnacle Art Center. They'd like to invite Phoenix Threads founder to team up on crafting a bespoke silk embroidery showcase right in the entrance hall. It's meant to be the project's highlight." The proposal carried immense significance. The Pinnacle Art Center was set to emerge as New York's latest landmark. Featuring Phoenix Threads pieces in such a prime spot could propel the brand to new heights of recognition. Aaliyah pondered briefly. Over the past 3 years, to nurture her modest family life, she'd turned down numerous grand opportunities, taking on just select personal orders to sustain the workshop. She'd concealed herself under the Phoenix Thread banner for so long that her former bold dreams had nearly faded. But now, unencumbered and unbound, she felt ready. Maybe it was Phoenix Thread's moment to truly flourish. She faced Maya, her expression steady and resolute. "Let them know we're open to discussing it. Set up a session for me with Mr. Davis." Maya beamed and stepped out promptly to handle it. Aaliyah resumed at the hoop, her fingertips tracing the majestic plumage of the bird. Like the phoenix emerging from flames, that might be her path as well. The ruins of her union hadn't broken her. They'd forged her into something tougher and more brilliant. Her eyes drifted to the view outside, toward Manhattan's towering skyline. Her path ahead and Phoenix Threads started in this very instant. Once Aaliyah departed, Simone Hargrove claimed the residence as its fresh mistress. On her initial day, she scoured each space, methodically wiping away every remnant of her predecessor. Out went the soft blue linens Aaliyah cherished, swapped for bold crimson ones. The dainty balcony flora gave way to lavish rose arrangements. She even acquired pricey modern artworks to adorn the walls, enforcing a stark new aesthetic, one that screamed Simone Hargrove. Every alteration got snapped and shared on her Instagram, paired with sly captions. Beside an image of an intimate dinner by candlelight, she captioned, "True joy might delay its visit, but with the perfect match, every second counts." Under a shot of young Malik lounging on the fresh couch, she noted, "At last my boy has a full family nest. Love turns any place into home." These updates acted like hidden barbs, aimed to pierce Aaliyah's spirit. Simone pictured her rival huddled somewhere, maybe in a dingy lease, scrolling through with envy and anguish tearing at her. She craved a response, a barb back, or at least proof of torment. Yet nothing came. Aaliyah Thurston's account lay dormant. Her avatar stayed a pristine magnolia bloom. The most recent update dated back 6 months. It was as if she'd vanished from the digital realm, brushing off Simone's jabs entirely. This quietude left Simone pounding at air, like striking a padded bag. Infuriating. She couldn't fathom Aaliyah's composure. In the meantime, within the old college friends' WhatsApp chat, their saga had exploded into the buzz of every chat. It started with a buddy known as Lazy Kitten piping up first. Folks, you catch that? Darius hauled his side chick and their kid back to the house. Aaliyah's gone. That breaks my heart for Aaliyah. All those years she poured everything into him just to wind up deserted like this. Then someone, probably one of Darius's pals, rushed to his corner. Love stuff gets messy. Darius slaved away solo in Chicago for 3 years. It's only human for a guy separated from his spouse to slip up once. But right away, another voice shot back. A slip-up that produces a 2-year-old. What kind of fool does he take Aaliyah for? The debate ignited. A few mocked Aaliyah. Others hinted she couldn't hold on to her man. A lady who's overly perfect and glued to domestic duties is bound to get ditched. See where she's at now. She must be suffering badly. What era does she think this is? Leaning on a guy like that. Simone scrolled through all the remarks. She got a thrill from the digs at Aaliyah, yet fumed that plenty still backed her. Even without showing up, Aaliyah cast a long shadow over Simone's world. Simone glanced at Darius, slumped on the couch with a scowl, and cooed sweetly, "Darling, why not ring her up and chat? Her quiet's got me concerned." But Darius, fresh from the attorneys, simmered in a foul temper. He shoved her touch aside harshly. Concerned over what? She's faking the victim card. Quit fretting over her. Faced with Darius's rare sharpness, Simone bit her tongue. She choked down her irritation. Unbeknownst to her in Darius's thoughts, she and the little one meant nothing anymore. His focus locked entirely on Aaliyah, Thurston's vast hidden wealth. To Simone, Aaliyah's hush felt like disdain. She failed to grasp it as the ultimate strike. Once a person quits giving a damn, every taunt falls flat. Darius stormed out of the Park Avenue high-rise, his mind a whirlwind of turmoil. The figures from the accounts, the spots of high-end real estate, and those 2 cryptic words, Phoenix Thread, swirled non-stop, fueling endless disorder. Back at the flat, he barricaded himself in the study, tuning out Simone's anxious raps on the door. His initial surge wasn't regret, but raw rage. A con. The whole thing's a con, he fumed, pounding the table. Aaliyah Thurston, the meek, obedient partner he'd figured he commanded, had the nerve to dupe him, amassing a fortune in secret for years. He came off as a joke, a dupe played for years without a clue. His ego lay in ruins. Yet once the fury ebbed, bafflement washed over him. How'd she pull it off? Where'd the cash come from? Phoenix Thread. Why keep it buried? He launched his own desperate probe. No way he'd quiz his business contacts or wealthy acquaintances. The shame burned too deep. Owning up that his spouse, the one he bragged about bankrolling, was leagues richer than him. Pure mortification. He fell back on trusty old tactics. Flipping open his contacts, he hunted for digits of long-lost college mates. Posing as if planning a class get-together, he eased into inquiries. First dial went to the ex-class head. After wrote hellos, he slipped in offhand, "Hey, you keeping tabs on Aaliyah Thurston? Lost touch with her recently." "Aaliyah." The guy paused. "Didn't you wed her?" Spotted her last at the 5-year reunion. As stunning as before, but more reserved. Come to think of it, you nabbed the department's dream girl. Darius's brow creased. Dream girl. You forget. The leader chuckled. Who was Aaliyah Thurston in those days? The star of the fashion design crew. Her capstone piece snagged the National Design Award and got showcased at Chelsea Market. Elite companies vied for her, dangling paychecks fresh grads could only fantasize about. Each revelation from his former chum hit Darius like a sledgehammer. Bits came back fuzzy. He knew she sketched brilliantly, but awards or gigs never registered. That phase he drowned in romance and swelled with vanity over landing such a gorgeous, gifted partner. We figured she'd soar as a top designer, perhaps a global name, the pal went on. Then bam! Once she linked up with you, she shelved it all, claimed she preferred homemaking to back you up. We all pitied her guts. Romance sure fogs the mind. After the call dropped, Darius froze in his seat. For the first stretch in ages, remorse seeped into his core. It flooded back now. He pictured the fire in her gaze as she shared her creative visions. He saw her poise on the award stage. He'd vowed to stand by. He had wounded her deeply, yet his self-centered drive and relentless drive for success had slowly smothered her gifts and dreams. He had transformed a brilliant phoenix into an ordinary bird, trapped in a lavish enclosure of his own making. However, that twinge of remorse faded in mere moments. It was swiftly eclipsed by a more potent, sinister urge, avarice and jealousy. If her skills were so remarkable, it made sense that she had built that wealth on her own. Yet why conceal it from him? A venomous idea took shape in his mind. She amassed that wealth while we were wed. Regardless of the means, by law it counted as shared assets. She had withheld details from him. She had betrayed his trust. The blame lay squarely with her. Darius's perspective shifted utterly. He ceased being the cheating spouse eager for a swift split to pursue his latest flame. Instead, he became a ravenous predator, eyeing a tempting quarry. Thoughts of Simone and their boy receded into irrelevance. His only goal now was to claim a portion, or perhaps all, of Aaliyah Thurston's concealed domain. 1 month on, the Waldorf Astoria Hotel in New York City shimmered beneath the evening glow. High-end vehicles lined up at the grand doorway. Reporters, top-style influencers, and key players from the urban commerce and creative scenes converged there. Every eye fixed on one occasion, the unveiling of Phoenix Thread's latest lineup, partnering with the Pinnacle Art Center initiative from the Sterling and Stone Empire. Up to that point, Phoenix Thread had lingered as an enigma. Their wares thrived without broad promotion. Their renown circulated quietly among the upper echelons, like a guarded gem. Word had it that the creator excelled in silk stitching, though her appearance and real name remained secrets. This alliance with a powerhouse firm, plus a debut public showcase, had rocked the sector to its core. Back in the rundown flat, Darius slumped on the couch, his expression dour. Simone labored to soothe young Malik, whose wails persisted. Tension hung heavy in the air. The separation dragged on far beyond Darius's expectations. Aaliyah's attorney, Camille Dixon, proved unyielding, deploying proofs and logic that pinned his team in retreat. Probes into Aaliyah's holdings hit a wall. All safeguards stood ironclad. In irritation, he switched on the TV and scanned the stations. Abruptly, he halted on a business broadcast airing a style gala in real time. The banner headline snagged his focus. Debut of the Phoenix Rising series from Phoenix Thread and the Sterling and Stone Alliance, Phoenix Thread. That phrase struck like a dagger to his rawest spot. He gaped at the display. The platform gleamed with elegance, the illumination enchanting. Runway stars strode in stunning ensembles, laced with intricate manual needlework, most strikingly a blazing phoenix motif that appeared to ignite upon ebony silk. He grasped it transcended mere apparel. It was pure artistry. The display closed amid roaring cheers. The host stepped forward, his tone brimming with thrill. And now, esteemed guests, the highlight we've all awaited. Please greet the originator, the essence of Phoenix Thread, making her inaugural public bow. Spotlight swiveled stage left. Beams converged on a single point. Darius's pulse quickened oddly. Even he felt the pull of intrigue. Who truly hid behind that veiled moniker? Out of the shadows glided a graceful silhouette. As the radiance hit her, the audience drew a collective breath. The lady donned a silvery white silk dress, accented by a magnolia sprig crafted in luminous, otherworldly strands. Her tresses swept into an elegant updo, exposing a refined, tranquil visage that radiated an uncommon presence. No broad grin lit her features. A mere subtle dip acknowledged the crowd, yet her gaze sparkled with assurance and dignity. Darius went rigid. The tumbler slipped from his grip, crashing and splintering on the ground. The harsh noise failed to snap him from his daze. Simone whirled in alarm, and before uttering a rebuke, she too fell mute at the sight on the screen. The figure basking in glory, bathed in laudatory ovations, hailed as a visionary creator, was Aaliyah Thurston. Far from the meek, unassuming partner they had scorned, she embodied Phoenix Thread. In that instant, a refined, striking gentleman ascended the platform. Clad in a flawlessly cut suit, he projected poise and command. It was Quincy Davis, head of the Sterling and Stone conglomerate. He positioned himself next to Aaliyah, his glance brimming with esteem and awe. Together they formed a striking duo, an inspired creator and a corporate titan. They seemed oddly in sync. That scene, framed by the TV glow, cut like the keenest knife, stripping the final remnant. The remnants of his arrogance clung to Darius as he departed. Come morning, he made his way by car to Alea's grand residence. This visit brought no trace of fury or disdain to his features, only a weary exhaustion. Sleepless nights had left his eyes red and swollen. He'd rehearsed a fresh approach. He pressed the doorbell. The maid answered, her stare icy and distant. "Apologies, sir. Miss Aaliyah isn't receiving visitors." "Please, madam," Darius replied, his tone laced with desperation. "Just inform Aaliyah that I recognize my errors. I'm here to plead for her pardon. I'll remain outside until she agrees to see me." True to his word, he positioned himself before the entrance, enduring the rising heat of the dawn sunlight. In his mind, Aaliyah, however resolute, wouldn't abandon her ex-husband to suffer in the open air. He misjudged her resolve. Nearly 60 minutes passed before the sturdy metal barrier swung aside, yet it wasn't Aaliyah emerging to meet him. Instead, the maid appeared carrying a simple tumbler of water. She set it atop a stone column near the entrance. "Miss Aaliyah instructs that if Mr. Sterling insists on lingering, that's his choice, but he shouldn't collapse from the warmth right at her doorstep. It might trouble the neighbors." With that, she pivoted and secured the gate once more. Fury flushed Darius's cheeks a deep crimson. This slight cut deeper than any slur, yet he restrained his outburst. Force wouldn't serve him, only strategy could. At last, around midday, Aaliyah consented to an audience in the parlor. She occupied an armchair, cradling a mug of soothing chamomile, composed as though entertaining a casual caller. Upon spotting her, Darius's gaze ignited. He hurried forward, aiming to claim the seat beside her, but her frosty look halted him abruptly. He settled for the couch across from hers. Launching into his act, his words dripped with regret and anguish. "Aaliyah, forgive me. These past days I've reflected deeply. I admit I'm a villain who let you down. It was all that cunning Simone Harov's spell over me. Aaliyah, we've shared so many years as spouses. Won't you offer me an opportunity to make things right?" Aaliyah took a measured sip, observing his display wordlessly. Met with silence, Darius shifted gears. "I caught your showcase yesterday evening. You're astonishing, Aaliyah. Never realized you embodied Phoenix Thread. The effort you poured in must have been immense. You hid it from me as well. Had I understood your gifts and dedication, I'd have cherished you properly." He started bending the facts. "Your holdings, your label. They developed during our union, didn't they? By legal standards, that qualifies as shared assets. Aaliyah, let's drop the divorce, all right? In memory of our past, retract the filing. Moving forward, I'll stand with you. I'll assist in running the business, boost your professional path. United, we can forge a vast legacy." At that moment, his facade crumbled, revealing his intent. No sorrow drove him, no affection lingered. It was pure avarice, hungering for her vast wealth. Aaliyah placed the mug softly on the side table. The faint clink startled Darius. She lifted her eyes, meeting his for the first time since his arrival, her stare piercing and unyielding, as if piercing his very essence. "Darius, have you said your piece?" she asked deliberately, each syllable precise. Rising, she crossed to her workspace and retrieved a thick file. To begin, Phoenix Thread was trademarked and the firm established by me prior to our wedding. It remains solely my personal asset. Next, throughout our marriage, every cent of company earnings flowed into an isolated account overseen by a neutral trustee. My attorney possesses complete records verifying the fund's provenance in isolation. It bears no relation to any claimed joint estate. Finally, regarding the divorce filing, I refuse to rescind it. Every statement landed like a crushing strike against Darius's scheme. He'd never anticipated her thoroughness, her airtight defenses offering him no cracks to slip through. Aaliyah proceeded to the exit and beckoned the maid. "See this visitor out and make certain he doesn't return." Darius froze amid the room, fixated on Aaliyah's impassive retreating form. The boldness on his expression morphed into genuine alarm and hopelessness. He grasped that victory had slipped entirely from his reach. Several days following her discussion with Quincy Davis, as Aaliyah Thurston immersed herself in designs for the Pinnacle Art Center initiative, the maid approached with a hesitant demeanor. "Miss Aaliyah, Mrs. Sterling, Mr. Darius Sterling's mother, waits at the entrance and requests an audience." Aaliyah halted briefly, though her hand remained steady on the drawing tool. She'd foreseen this confrontation. Aware of her ex-mother-in-law's temperament, particularly now that her role as Phoenix Thread stood revealed, inaction was unthinkable. She set aside the pencil. "Invite her inside," she responded evenly. The maid showed a flicker of astonishment, but complied. Aaliyah aimed to resolve every loose end decisively. Mrs. Sterling was ushered into the parlor. In stark opposition to her haughty and domineering demeanor during that recent phone call, she appeared completely broken today. Her silver locks disheveled, her eyelids puffy from crying, her outfit rumpled and unkempt. The moment she spotted Aaliyah, she hurried over, tears brimming in her eyes. "Aaliyah, it wasn't my fault. I messed up," she pleaded, reaching out to clasp Aaliyah's hand. But Aaliyah deftly pulled away, dodging the grasp. Mrs. Sterling ended up with her arm dangling awkwardly in mid-air, then hastily dabbed at her eyes to launch into her theatrical display. "My dear, I made a terrible error. At my age, I can't tell good from bad anymore. These past few days, I've barely eaten or rested. Guilt is eating me alive. I've come here to plead for your mercy." Aaliyah settled quietly onto the couch, gesturing for the elder lady to take the seat in the opposite chair, keeping a deliberate space between them. She remained silent, curious to observe just how elaborate the act would become. When Aaliyah showed no response, Mrs. Sterling ramped up the theatrics. She started pinning all the blame on Simone Harrove. "It's entirely that vixen's doing. She lured my Darius in. He's always been an upright young man who cherished his spouse. That witch ensnared him with the baby, binding him to her. That's the reason for his slip-up with you, my child. You're the ideal match for the Sterling household. Stunning, compassionate, and incredibly skilled. I let you down. My boy let you down." She sobbed uncontrollably before shifting to desperate appeals. "Aaliyah, for the sake of this elderly lady, for all those years you shared in marriage, pardon him just this one time. Which husband avoids errors altogether? If you return, I swear I'll evict that woman and her kid from our home right away. I'll force Darius to get on his knees and seek your pardon." To drive her point home, she didn't shy away from slandering the very child she'd once dubbed her grandson. "I never desired that illegitimate spawn. For all I know, he might not even be Darius's. just some other man's. I'll refuse to recognize him as a true Sterling heir. You're our sole daughter-in-law." At those words, Aaliyah's composure cracked slightly, though not from sympathy but from profound revulsion. The sheer nerve and deceit of this woman surpassed anything Aaliyah had envisioned. She lifted her gaze, locking eyes with Mrs. Sterling's tear-streaked, insincere stare. "Mrs. Sterling, has your little show concluded?" she asked in an icy, detached tone. The formal Mrs. caused Mrs. Sterling's feigned smile to stiffen. That title erected an unbridgeable wall. Aaliyah pressed on, her expression unchanging. "Earlier, you were the one phoning me, urging patience toward your son and grandson for the family's harmony. Yet now you're perched here, vilifying them as a tramp and a bastard. Doesn't that strike you as inconsistent and absurd?" Mrs. Sterling's complexion drained of color, leaving her speechless. Aaliyah rose to her feet, her stare turned utterly frosty. "My connection to Darius Sterling has ended. I'll never retract the divorce filing, and I have zero desire to rejoin your scheming clan. I request that you leave me in peace from this point forward." She addressed the maid. "Mrs. Carmen, kindly escort the visitor out." Mrs. Sterling stood frozen, incredulous at being ushered away so dismissively. She attempted to object, but Aaliyah's resolute, chilling expression silenced her. She realized reconciliation was impossible. The maid drew near, polite yet resolute. "Mrs. Sterling, if you'll follow me this way." Mrs. Sterling rose unsteadily and trailed after her toward the entrance, utterly shamed. The grand estate's door closed firmly in her wake, punctuating the end of her futile dreams. Ever since his ejection from Aaliyah's residence, Darius Sterling transformed into a shadow of himself. Gone was the bold swagger of the accomplished designer. He abandoned any pretense of devoted partner or ideal parent. He sequestered himself in his study for hours, amid stacks of scattered papers. Yet these weren't design plans. Instead, they formed dossiers he'd gathered on the Phoenix Thread label, Aaliyah's property holdings, and attorney Camille Dixon. The deeper his probe went, the more despair gripped him. It all resembled an unassailable citadel, flawless in every detail. Frustration morphed into anger, and he lashed out at his surroundings. The infant Malik's wails grated on his nerves. Simone's meals repulsed him. The once proud apartment, emblem of his triumphs, now resembled a stifling prison. Simone naturally sensed the shift. Darius's warmth and attentiveness had evaporated, supplanted by sharp rebukes and aloofness. Anxiety gnawed at her. Her fantasy of ascending as Mrs. Sterling, matriarch of affluence, drifted further out of reach. She resolved to act and secure her foothold. That evening, once Malik was tucked in, Simone slipped into an alluring satin negligee, decanted some crimson wine, and slipped into the study. "Darling, you shouldn't labor so late into the night. It'll wear you down." Darius kept his focus downward, merely muttering in reply. Simone placed the wine on the desk, encircled his shoulders from the rear, and murmured, snapped Simone, "Listen, the split from her is nearly finalized. Why don't we scout some venues for our ceremony this weekend? My father's been nagging about it as well. He insists on hosting a lavish affair for us." The mention of wedding ignited an explosive fury within Darius, like a spark hitting dry tinder. He shoved her hands aside forcefully and leaped to his feet, veins bulging in his reddened eyes. "Wedding? Yeah, have you lost your mind? How dare you even consider ceremonies now?" Simone recoiled in shock, her expression shifting to indignation. "And what's wrong with that? My boy and I deserve some formal acknowledgement, right? Or are you planning to leave us in limbo without any legal protection indefinitely?" Darius unleashed a harsh, mocking chuckle laced with bitterness. "Protection? That's all you care about? Status? Do you grasp what we've squandered? A vast fortune, the kind of existence we could have savored endlessly, and it's entirely because of you. Without you and that kid, we wouldn't be in this mess." Simone froze, her eyes brimming with tears. "My fault. Darius, how can you utter such words? The man from Chicago who vowed undying devotion, who claimed exhaustion with his foolish spouse, and now you're dumping every ounce of guilt on me." For the first time, their quarrel detonated fully, hurling pent-up resentments, schemes, and self-serving motives at one another. "I should have realized how wealthy she was. Insane to abandon her for you," Darius bellowed. "You think I can't see through your regrets?" She shot back. "You're aching over not holding on to that treasure trove. You loathe me since I can't deliver the perks she provided. Darius Sterling, you're just a fortune hunter at heart." Crash. Darius swiped the wineglass from the table. It exploded against the ground, crimson liquid splattering across the cream-colored rug like fresh wounds. The air in the space grew frigid. They glared at each other with raw enmity, resembling total unknowns. The bond forged from deceit and scheming revealed its initial, profound, unfixable fissure. No longer partners in crime, they had become solitary opportunists, scrambling to salvage their stakes on a doomed vessel. Amid the external turmoil, Aaliyah Thurston remained utterly unconcerned. Once she'd cleared out the pests, she poured her full focus and vigor into her duties. The Pinnacle Art Center venture required massive innovation and funding, yet that merely fueled her enthusiasm. Beyond this venture, though, Aaliyah nursed a separate ambition, rooted in her passion for embroidery craftsmanship. During a session with the Phoenix Thread Executive Group, she unveiled the initiative formally. The projection on the conference wall displayed visuals of an ancient settlement by a waterway, featuring rooftops blanketed in moss and walls weathered by years. It appeared serene, yet hinted at neglect. "This is Blue Ridge Thread Works, nestled in the North Carolina mountains," Aaliyah declared with a crisp, fervent tone. It used to stand as a premier hub for silk and manual embroidery nationwide, but industrialization eroded the tradition bit by bit. Today, just a handful of aging experts persist, holding on to their skills while scraping by. She halted, scanning each face present. Phoenix Thread thrives because of that core embroidery heritage. We can't simply take without contributing in return. So I've resolved that we'll channel this year's entire earnings into kickstarting the Phoenix Rising Heritage Initiative. The group sat quietly, absorbing her words. "We'll revive the Blue Ridge Threadworks site, fix up the facilities, upgrade the tools, bring in veteran craftspeople for instruction, and offer no-cost workshops for younger talents. We'll transform it into more than a specialized manufacturing spot, into a sanctuary for cultural safeguarding and immersive visitor experiences. We'll resurrect silk embroidery's heyday." Aaliyah's vision stemmed not from commerce, but from profound yearning. She aimed to deploy her resources to safeguard vanishing cultural treasures. Soon after, details of the endeavor hit the press. Leveraging Phoenix Thread's renown, the Phoenix Rising Heritage Project garnered widespread backing from communities and regional authorities. Observers hailed it as a vital gesture underscoring corporate civic duty. The reputation of both Phoenix Thread and Aaliyah Thurston soared even higher among the masses. Aaliyah couldn't have foreseen that this heartfelt step would, by chance, deliver a crippling strike to Darius and Simone's clan schemes. Meanwhile, in the boardroom of a building firm, Simone's dad, Mr. Hargrove, slammed his fist down in rage. That Aaliyah Thurston, Darius sat there, ashen-faced, opposite him. The finance paper lay spread to the lead story on Phoenix Thread's undertaking. "Do you realize the location of that Threadworks settlement?" Mr. Hargrove spat. "It's smack beside the plot we poured a fortune into priming for seizure and acquisition. The government's recent approval of her Heritage Preservation Initiative has thrown a wrench into our resort development. Now that site is classified as protected cultural land, our whole acquisition strategy is in tatters. The substantial upfront funding we poured in could all go down the drain." A shiver coursed through Darius as the implications sank in. That sprawling resort venture represented his big chance to bounce back from a string of setbacks in his professional life. He'd invested every ounce of his drive and network into making it happen. Simone, standing nearby, faltered in her words. "Dad, perhaps it's nothing more than chance." Chance. Her father let out a harsh, mirthless chuckle. "You're so innocent. In our line of work, nothing's ever that random. That woman's gunning for us, plain and simple. She's aiming to block every path we have left." Darius's hands balled into fists, the tendons bulging across his knuckles. He refused to chalk it up to mere luck. In his view, this was Aaliyah executing a meticulously orchestrated payback. She wasn't content with the split and her share of the assets. She aimed to shatter his livelihood and prospects entirely. Dread and resentment twisted together, fueling a poisonous delusion. His gaze shifted to Simone with a flicker of doubt. Had she been aware of this scheme earlier? I have no idea," she stuttered. "She's played a ruthless hand," Darius bellowed. "We're utterly in her power now." Meanwhile, in her design workshop, Aaliyah was carefully sketching out the foundational concepts for the upcoming Blue Ridge Threadworks community. Blissfully unaware, an endeavor driven purely by passion had unwittingly driven her betrayers to the edge of ruin. This instinctive decision turned out to be her sharpest maneuver yet. The old adage about troubles coming in waves had never rung truer for Darius than right then. As he and Simone's kin scrambled for alternatives to salvage their derailed resort scheme, yet another disaster struck, obliterating their final lifeline. The International Business Center in Chicago, that towering architectural triumph he'd cherished most, had plunged into a devastating controversy. What had launched him to prominence now faced blistering accusations. It started with a nameless entry on an architect's online board, backed by thorough video breakdowns and photos. The claim, the fresh high-rise was already riddled with dangerous fissures in its support beams and base. The poster, claiming to be an ethical structural expert, highlighted how the steel and concrete employed fell woefully short of required specs. In essence, rampant fraud. What began as buzz in industry channels erupted into a full-blown press frenzy via online platforms. Prominent outlets latched on swiftly. The once iconic tower, Chicago's gleaming symbol, now evoked chilling labels: shoddy construction, brittle facade, ticking hazard. Officials launched probes into the builders and Mr. Hargrove's firm on the spot, freezing the entire endeavor. As lead designer overseeing the blueprint and on-site oversight, Darius drew the bulk of the backlash. The hard-earned prestige he'd cultivated vanished in a flash. His cell buzzed relentlessly, reporters hounding him, collaborators pulling out of deals, buyers of units in the structure clamoring for refunds. Slumped at his desk, he gaped blankly at the glaring news blasts filling his monitor. "Unbelievable! Utterly impossible," he whispered to himself. "I poured my soul into that blueprint. Countless sleepless nights on location. How did this even occur?" At that instant, Mr. Hargrove rang through. His tone crackled like a cornered animal's growl. "Darius, you idiot. What sort of blueprint could lead to this mess? You've dragged us all under." Snapping to, Darius fired back. "This isn't on me. My plans were flawless. Blame your outfit. You probably cut corners on supplies to pocket the difference." "Spare me the excuses," the other snapped with a scornful bark. "We followed your blueprints to the letter. As head architect, the buck stops with you." Their opportunistic partnership shattered amid the chaos. Desperate, they hurled accusations, each clawing to escape the quagmire. Once the call ended, Darius heaved for breath, his body shaking. He sensed himself trapped, engulfed in unrelenting gloom. Amid the turmoil and hopelessness, one figure dominated his thoughts: Aaliyah Thiston. It had to be her doing. A venomous suspicion gripped him tight. The sequence was too precise. First the resort blockage, now this Chicago fiasco. Every endeavor tied to him was crumbling. No way was it happenstance. She'd surely enlisted investigators to probe his vulnerabilities, expose the flaws, and sabotage him publicly. Her vendetta ran deeper than the separation. She sought total annihilation, to bury him in disgrace, where he'd stay down forever. That notion slithered in like poison, wrapping around his core. No longer did he view Aaliyah as a wronged former spouse. She loomed as a formidable foe, a cunning and sinister force pulling levers from the dark. His features twisted, distorted, consumed by resentment and utter terror, Darius found himself trapped in turmoil, while Aaliyah's days unfolded with unexpected serenity. She poured the bulk of her energy into her design workshop or wandered through libraries and galleries, hunting for ideas and sparks to fuel the Pinnacle Art Center initiative. That day, she made her way to Mount C Hospital in New York, a spot she never enjoyed visiting, yet one she couldn't sidestep. Mr. Solomon, the aged expert in silk embroidery and her initial guide, had been hospitalized following a minor stroke. After spending time in his room, talking with him, and confirming he was settled for recovery, Aaliyah departed. As she headed toward the elevator, she walked by the children's ward. She planned to keep moving ahead, but the desperate wails of a young one halted her steps without thought. In the lounge opposite a treatment room, a recognizable silhouette drew her eye. It was Simone Hargrove. Gone was the striking allure from their initial meeting. She sported plain, faded attire, her hair disheveled. Without cosmetics, her complexion appeared ashen and drained. Cradled in her embrace was young Malik. The toddler sobbed uncontrollably, his cheeks red from a raging temperature. Simone seemed utterly bewildered and anxious, swaying the boy gently while fixating on the clinic entrance. Aaliyah lingered in a secluded spot, observing. A tangled, elusive sensation surged within her. There was no satisfaction or delight in witnessing her adversary's plight. Observing Simone grapple with her ill offspring, Aaliyah's view shifted. No longer the despised other woman, but a helpless, fretful parent. And that little one bore no guilt. His sobs carried no deceit or scheme. They stemmed purely from the anguish of a tiny frame. He merited no fallout from grown-up errors. A sharp twinge of regret pierced her. She wasn't flawless. Forgiveness for their betrayal eluded her. Yet right then, beholding the youngster's raw suffering, hatred evaporated. What filled her was unadulterated empathy, rising above any lingering animosity. She had no plans to draw near. She simply watched afar before pivoting away. Such issues belonged to the past now. Just as she spun around, she collided with another person. "Pardon me," she murmured quickly, glancing upward. The individual before her caught her off guard a bit. It was Quincy Davis. He mirrored her astonishment momentarily, then offered a polite grin. "Miss Thurston, what an unexpected meeting." Aaliyah gave a subtle nod. "Hello, Mr. Davis. I stopped by to see an acquaintance of my father's," he noted succinctly. Next, his sharp eyes settled on her features. "You appear healthy, though not quite your usual self." He avoided glancing toward Simone's location. His focus remained solely on Aaliyah. That discretion eased her tension. She shook her head, attempting a faint smile. "Just a fleeting recollection." Quincy refrained from probing deeper. He recognized boundaries. Instead, he regarded her intently and abruptly, voiced an offhand remark. "Creativity thrives on fresh sparks. Avoid letting shadows from the past dim them." His statement held real weight, akin to counsel from a fellow soul who grasped her essence. He viewed her not as a figure mired in marital dissolution, but as a creator whose imaginative realm demanded safeguarding. A gentle warmth flowed through Aaliyah's core. It had been ages since anyone connected with her so profoundly. "Appreciate it," she replied. Her expression this time carried genuine warmth. She bid him farewell and proceeded to the elevator. Visions of the weeping boy and weary parent lingered in her mind. Yet Quincy's insight acted like a soothing gust, softly clearing the gloom and restoring her equilibrium. Her journey centered on artistry and invention. Bygone conflicts must fade. The Chicago controversy and the frozen resort development had driven Darius to the edge. Still, he clung to a final lifeline. During the separation proceedings, he aimed to demonstrate that portions of Aaliyah's wealth had built up over their union, thus claiming funds to rebuild his life. Unbeknownst to him, a real catastrophe, brewed undetected, poised to obliterate it all. Within Camille Dixon's legal suite, the air crackled with intense pressure. Her squad comprised not just skilled attorneys, but elite specialists in financial probes and accounting forensics. At first, their mission focused on compiling proof of unfaithfulness and mapping Aaliyah's holdings to shield them in the split. However, while scrutinizing Darius's earnings for asset allocation, a team member spotted something irregular. The junior finance specialist highlighted an intricate fund transfer chart on the large display. "Camille, check this out. Here's the standard pay and incentives Darius Sterling earned from the Chicago venture. The amount substantial yet justifiable. That said, when we followed the payments linked to Mr. Hargrove's building firm, odd outflows emerged." She enlarged a cluster of dealings. Massive funds from the initiative had been funneled to various suppliers of building materials. What raised red flags was that these firms popped up just prior to the project's launch. They lacked any prior operations and listed ambiguous addresses. Camille squinted, her gut screaming that foul play was afoot. The specialist gave a nod. Once the funds arrived, these dummy outfits funneled nearly everything, minus a tiny cut, into scores of individual bank accounts via a series of minor transfers designed to dodge alarms. Tracing that cash trail consumed ages. She halted, drew in a steadying breath, and jabbed at a figure displayed on the monitor. Ultimately, a hefty chunk wound up in an overseas bank, the beneficiary, Darius Sterling. Silence gripped the chamber. The gravity hit everyone hard. This transcended a mere marital split. It screamed of coordinated financial wrongdoing, theft of assets, diversion of resources, washing illicit gains. A single charge like that could lock up Darius and Mr. Hargrove for years. Suddenly, it all made sense. Darius's rapid ascent, his opulent existence in Chicago, these stemmed not solely from his architectural prowess, but from tainted proceeds. He wasn't merely a cheating spouse. He was a lawbreaker. Camille wasted no time phoning Aaliyah. She held back the details over the line, insisting on a face-to-face. In the opulent parlor of the estate, Aaliyah pored over the papers Camille passed her way. With each page, her expression hardened to ice. She was aware of Darius's drive, his no-nonsense approach, his readiness to bend rules for advancement, yet she'd never fathomed he'd abandon all morals, crushing principles, his vocation, and legal boundaries like this. The deception cut deeper than his affair. It not only tarnished their romance, but obliterated the upright character she'd once placed total faith in. "Aaliyah," Camille intoned gravely. "Armed with this proof, we secure the divorce victory and can launch a straight-up criminal suit. The choice rests with you." Aaliyah stayed quiet for an extended stretch, her eyes drifting to the pane where the dying sunlight slipped away. She wasn't one to trap people in corners, but this went beyond private resentment. It imperiled a whole structure's integrity, fairness, and the rule of law. She faced Camille, resolve sharpening her stare. "Camille, pursue what's mandated by justice. Those who err must face the consequences." This proved the ultimate blow, the knockout punch that would dismantle Darius Sterling's world. Another missive arrived at Darius from Camille Dixon's firm. Unlike prior summons or property split offers, this one hinted at shady dealings tied to the Chicago venture, including a fuzzy scan of wire instructions to the foreign account under his name. It stopped short of promising legal action, yet the threat loomed large. Spotting those amounts, Darius sensed his reality crumbling. Icy perspiration trickled along his spine. His fingers shook wildly. It's finished, he mused. Aaliyah's uncovered it all. She's after more than cash. She aims to imprison me. Sheer dread eclipsed his logic. He bolted from his workspace in frenzy, hunting for Simone. He located her in the lounge, spooning yogurt to young Malik. Darius slammed the document on the surface. The thud startled the boy, who wailed, "What the hell is this? Make it clear to me." Simone, caught off guard, soothed the kid and snatched the sheet. Recognizing the sums instantly, her complexion drained. I have no clue," she faltered, dodging his eyes. Darius's temper snapped. He seized her arms and rattled her, voice nearing a shout. "Stop the charade! How much longer will you deceive me?" Aaliyah's pieced it together. She's got the full dossier. She's turning us in. Prison awaits. Get it. The mention of prison stabbed at Simone's deepest dread. Her facade of helplessness cracked wide open. Sobs erupted, but this round was genuine fright. She crumpled, quaking, and admitted it stemmed from my dad. He claimed the bill required quick cash, that it was just a short-term borrow we'd repay down the line. Darius unleashed a crazed chuckle. A borrow, routing funds via fake entities to a foreign stash as a borrow. And why route it to mine? Because you're the lead designer, Simone wept. Tying it to your holdings would cover certain costs. Dad insisted it was more secure. I pulled it off for us. She raised her tear-soaked visage, pleading to his affection. I dreamed of a stable tomorrow for us, the finest for Malik. I saw that cash as family funds. Once we're wed, your assets become mine too, don't they? Far from soothing him, her plea hit like icy deluge. He let go, retreating a pace, gazing at her as though seeing her anew. Suddenly, every scattered fragment snapped together in his mind, assembling a full, horrifying image. Her sudden arrival in Chicago, her flawless empathy and affection, her unwavering devotion. It was all an elaborately staged illusion. He wasn't the beloved partner she cherished. He was merely an instrument, a prized piece in their game, his role as lead designer, his endorsement and his finances being the real prizes she and her father sought. The romance he'd romanticized, the rationale for his own disloyalty, proved to be a lie from the outset. A stabbing ache gripped Darius's chest. Breath escaped him. He'd forsaken a woman who genuinely cared for him, a serene existence, all for a mirage conjured by his own delusions and these swindlers. He slumped onto the couch, his stare vacant. He'd forfeited it all, his profession, his standing, his heart, and likely his liberty before long. The saga where he played a starring role had reached its conclusion, and he alone would bear the steepest cost. The flat plunged into a chilling quiet following the clash. The infant Malik's wails had ceased. Simone held him close in the sleeping quarters, her muffled weeping drifting out now and then. Darius stayed rooted to the couch, his eyes fixed on the faded crimson wine mark on the rug. He resembled a vessel gradually descending into the sea's abyss, enveloped solely by icy void. His job, his name, his wealth, all draining away. And even the professed affection and fresh family he'd invoked to excuse his infidelity now stood exposed as an outright scam. He was nothing more than a dupe, a means to an end. Simone emerged from the bedroom, her eyes puffed with tears, yet she'd composed herself somewhat. She recognized this moment called for no battle. The sole path to retaining him lay in seeming fragile, deploying her final ploy. She settled beside him, her tone faint and gentle. "Darling, forgive me. I was furious before and I uttered words I regret. Please don't dwell on them. Arguing now won't help. We need to tackle this as a team, don't we?" Darius offered no reply. Simone pressed on, resting her hand over his, which felt frozen. "Whatever comes next, Malik remains ours. Our little boy is so young. He requires us both. For his sake, can we push forward united?" The term boy caused Darius's lids to flutter. He pivoted gradually toward the woman at his side. Her features retained their allure, yet to him they now mirrored only vile treachery. Each utterance carried intent. He withdrew his hand. His voice emerged rough and frigid. "Do you truly care for me? Or is it solely my lead designer status you crave?" Simone stiffened, feigning hurt. "What on earth do you mean? Naturally, I love you." Darius unleashed a harsh chuckle, his grin more sorrowful than tears. "Me, or the benefits you could deliver to your father and yourself." The disdain in his eyes shattered Simone's final restraint. She could feign no longer. Panic and fury surged, morphing into sharp, unrestrained barbs. "So what if I do love you, and what if I don't? Darius Sterling, take a look at your situation. What's left for you? Your job's finished. You're broke, and prison looms. Do you believe you're still worthy of anyone's affection?" The dispute reignited, fiercer than before. The most vicious barbs flew. "Had I foreseen this, I'd never have partnered with someone like you," Darius bellowed. "You rue it. Admit it." She shrieked, her features twisted in wrath. "Think I relished it. Enduring a man like you, and worse, bearing your child on top." In the peak of her rage, Simone spat a remark she'd lament eternally, an offhand-sounding line that struck Darius's final, fragile spot like a dagger. She sneered mockingly, her inflection dripping scorn. "Without this kid, do you imagine you'd hold any worth to us?" A thunderclap seemed to rend Darius. Time halted around him. The shouts, the sobs, the crash of shattering items, all vanished. Within his thoughts, only Simone's final words echoed. "Without this kid, do you imagine you'd hold any worth to us?" Worth as a utility. The boy, a dreadful doubt, an idea he'd never permitted himself to entertain, burgeoned in his brain like some beast. He rotated deliberately. His eyes held no rage now, just an icy dread. He directed his sight to the bedroom where Malik slumbered, the boy he'd proclaimed proudly to all, his offspring, the one sharing his surname, his successor. Did the resemblance truly exist, or was it mere fancy? Simone, noting his look, sensed a dire foreboding. She grasped her error and sought to mend it. "No, that's not what I intended. I was heated and spoke rashly." But Darius tuned her out. He rose wordlessly, entered his study, and secured the door. That evening, as Simone and the boy rested, he slipped quietly into the sleeping room. He regarded the child not through a parent's gaze, yet with investigators in mind. With caution, he gathered several delicate strands from the boy's pillow and enclosed them in a fresh piece of tissue paper. Next, he extracted a single strand from his own head. Clutching both specimens in his palm, his pulse raced wildly. He needed to uncover the reality, no matter the price. He required this ultimate revelation. The ensuing days dragged on in a nightmarish haze. Darius and Simone shared not a single utterance. He glided through the home like a specter, while she dwelled in terror, too afraid to inquire about his actions that evening. Darius devoted much of his hours to the screen, not for professional tasks, but endlessly checking his private inbox. He lingered in anticipation, yearning for the decisive judgment on his doomed existence. He had dispatched the pair of hair specimens to a renowned DNA analysis lab through an unidentified delivery firm. They assured delivery of outcomes within 3 working days via electronic mail. Each moment of suspense felt like agony. Sleep eluded him entirely. He shed pounds noticeably. His facial hair sprouted wildly. He appeared a decade older. From time to time, he found himself gazing absently at Malik at play. He sought traces of resemblance in the youngster's features, any hint of his own likeness. Yet the closer he scrutinized, the more alien the boy appeared. That grin, those eyes, nothing echoed his own. On the 3rd day's late hours, while he sat lost in thought, a fresh message alert popped up on his display. His heartbeat halted. From Forensic Genetics Lab. Title, DNA Examination Outcomes. Reference, "Yeah, file identifier." His fingers shook as he guided the cursor to the message. Drawing a steadying breath, summoning every ounce of resolve, he selected it. An attached PDF document awaited. He launched it. The document laid out findings in a detached, clinical format, rows of genetic indicators, intricate jargon beyond his grasp. Yet comprehension wasn't necessary. His focus locked onto the closing statement, highlighted in bold and boxed clearly. Evaluation and determination. From examining 24 STR loci, the match between the presumed parent sample, Darius Sterling, and the minor's sample, Malik Hargrove, reveals mismatches at 15 sites. Per established genetic protocols, we conclude thus: no paternal biological tie exists between the alleged father and the child. No genetic connection whatsoever. Those stark phrases struck Darius like a sledgehammer to the skull. In that moment, his reality fractured. Ambient noises faded away. The TV's murmur from the lounge, Malik's playful chuckles, gone. Only the frantic thump within his ribcage echoed. He had forfeited his profession, his standing, his wealth. He had surrendered the partner who genuinely cherished him. And now, the final anchor slipped away, the honor of fathering an heir to carry his name. It had all been an illusion, a flawless deception where he served as both dupe and unwitting extra. Not merely robbed of funds and affection, he had been coerced into nurturing someone else's offspring. That degradation cut deeper than parting from Aliyah, eclipsed the dread of imprisonment. A hoarse, icy chuckle escaped his lips. It escalated into unrestrained, frenzied guffaws. He mocked his own folly, the audacity of his betrayers, the wreckage of his days. Salty tears cascaded down his cheeks, blending with his manic mirth. He slumped forward onto the keys, his sturdy frame convulsing fiercely. Once perched at the pinnacle, he possessed it all, but a single misguided choice, fueled by avarice and ego, had raised it all through his own folly. And presently, emptiness reigned. Utter void. Darius Sterling's downfall accelerated beyond expectation. Post the shattering paternity disclosure, he transformed into a hollow husk. No more disputes or outbursts. He evicted Simone and the boy from the residence, not in rage, but enveloped in an eerie quiet. Everything had vanished. The design company dismissed him to sidestep scandals. Old associates shunned him. Acquaintances steered clear. His finances stood seized. He confronted a torrent of legal actions from the builder and patrons. The upscale residence faced imminent seizure by lenders. From elite drafter of structures to utter ruin, he tumbled into the void without cushion. In his bleakest, most anguished periods, when liquor and smokes failed to dull the ache, the sole vision surfacing was Aliyah's. Not today's version, the radiant, elusive force of nature, but yesteryear's Aliyah, the tender, empathetic spouse ever present through his trials. She represented his sole remaining tether. Rallying his scant reserves, he motored to her estate. Gone were the tailored ensembles. Instead, a creased, discolored blouse, unkempt trousers, stubble from days past, disheveled locks, and weary, veined gaze. He resembled a vagrant. Even the entrance eluded him. The watchman eyed him with disdain and barred entry. He lingered across the roadway. Wait. He lingered quietly outside, yearning for a glimpse of her. From dawn until dusk, he stood vigil. As the lamps along the avenue flickered to life, the sleek black Bentley at last approached. When it pulled up to the entrance, he rushed forward. Aliyah Thurston had only just emerged from the vehicle. Spotting Darius in his disheveled condition, she betrayed no astonishment, almost as though she'd anticipated his presence. Her expression remained serene, utterly unaltered. The driver and bodyguard moved to step in, but Aliyah gave a subtle shake of her head. She gestured for them to hold back and fixed her eyes on the figure before her. "What is it you seek from me?" Her tone carried a remote chill, like addressing an utter unknown. That detachment shattered the final shred of Darius's self-respect. He gazed at her, radiant and poised as ever, then caught sight of his own wretched form mirrored in the car's polished surface. The stark disparity crushed him utterly. Words failed him. Instead, he lowered himself gradually, intentionally, to one knee right there on the opulent boulevard beneath the amber glow of the lights. The once unyielding symbol of arrogance humbled himself for the first time. His tears streamed down, genuine now, no longer staged. They marked the sorrow of utter defeat. "Aaliyah, forgive me," he murmured, his voice fracturing amid sobs. "I realize it's far too late, but I was deeply mistaken." He poured it all out. How Simone and her father had manipulated him, the shady transactions, his foolish faith in a fabricated romance, and at last he revealed the most agonizing, degrading secret: the child. "That boy isn't mine. I've been caring for someone else's offspring all this time. Aaliyah, I've been a fool, a utter joke." He lifted his face, drenched in tears, staring up at her in raw desperation, like a cornered animal pleading for compassion. "I've forfeited it all. My profession, my standing, my companions, gone. Prison awaits me. Aaliyah, I don't beg for your pardon. I only invoke the time we shared as spouses. Aid me this once, just once. Rescue me." His entreaty hung in the quiet air, feeble and heartbreaking. He'd forsaken every ounce of honor, grasping at the faint chance of salvation from the wife he'd callously deserted long ago. Aaliyah Thurston remained still, absorbing each admission and appeal from Darius. A soft evening breeze rustled her attire. In her gaze lingered no triumph of conquest, no sympathy for the fallen. Hatred had vanished, too, replaced by a profound tranquility, akin to a pond-still mirror in the storm's wake, smooth and unrippled. The man prostrated before her had once been her entire universe, yet now he struck her as merely a lamentable outsider, a dim echo of the past. She replied deliberately, her words crisp and icy, stripped of feeling. "Rise, Darius." Hope sparked in his eyes as he met hers. "Aaliyah, does that mean—" But her following words extinguished it entirely. "Your ruin isn't my handiwork. Revenge was never my aim." She locked eyes with him, her delivery precise and unwavering. "All this torment stems from your avarice and your choices alone. You opted for disloyalty. You pursued the unlawful route. You embraced deceptions. You dismantled your own existence. Own it. No one else to fault." Darius fell mute. Her statement wasn't a heated rebuke, but a merciless, factual verdict. She viewed him not even as an adversary deserving retribution. That apathy stung worse than countless barbs. "But our shared history," he faltered. "That bond," Aaliyah responded gently, "severed the instant you welcomed another woman and her boy into our house. I won't assist you, nor will I sabotage you further. Leave it to the law. Errors demand accountability. That's equity." With that, she passed through the gateway. The massive metal barrier swung shut with a harsh scrape, severing the final link between them like a sharpened edge. Darius stayed on his knees amid the empty road, a lone, wretched silhouette. He understood then it was irrevocably finished. 7 days later, the divorce's concluding session unfolded. The chamber's air hung heavy with gravity and frigidity. No heated disputes or anguished claims disrupted the flow. Proceedings advanced swiftly and methodically. Aaliyah, the initiator, held herself erect, her features serene. She donned a refined beige trouser ensemble. Darius, the counterpart, appeared gaunt and hollow-eyed, resembling a marionette with severed cords. As the magistrate announced the union dissolved on compelling proof, Darius showed no response. Aaliyah accepted the ruling from her attorney, inking the forms with steady, resolute lines. Upon completion, she rose and departed the space alongside her counsel, sparing Darius not a single glance. The portal swung wide, spilling vibrant noon sunlight into the corridor. Aaliyah blinked against the glare and inhaled the crisp breeze deeply. She stood entirely liberated. Whatever befell Darius thereafter lay beyond her concern. A vast horizon stretched ahead, inviting her forward. Unfurl her wings. Retribution might take its time, yet it always arrives. The downfall of Darius and the Harrow clan stood as the starkest testament to this truth. Following the split, the dossier of fiscal wrongdoing compiled by Camille Dixon's group was formally submitted to the officials. A sweeping probe ensued. The veil over their sordid schemes lifted at last. Confronted by undeniable proof, Darius and Mr. Hargrove could no longer point fingers at one another. Jointly, they had woven a web of phantom firms, fabricated agreements, and siphoned off massive sums from the Chicago Initiative. The media, once lauding Darius, now plunged into exposing every misdeed of his and the Harrows. Their images splashed across front covers with lurid captions, "Visionary Builder" or "Sly Swindler." Harrow building dynasty crumbles under avarice. In the courtroom, Darius shattered entirely. He confessed to every offense, drained of the will to contest charges of theft, fund washing, and violations of property zoning laws. His punishment served as a stern warning, locking away his prime decades in a cell. Mr. Harrow, the chief orchestrator, drew an equivalent verdict. The firm he had erected over decades filed for insolvency, with every holding liquidated to cover reparations. Regarding Simone Hargrove, though she hadn't joined the felonies hands-on, her status as an enabler, hider, and gainer sealed her fate under the law. Amid the probe, a more explosive secret surfaced. Her actual paramour, Malik's real dad, turned out to be the firm's deputy head, wed to another. Simone and her partner had orchestrated it all from the start. They exploited Darius's innocence and drive, molding him into the ideal scapegoat to mask their forbidden affair while advancing their crooked ventures. The affection she claimed for Darius was merely a cunningly staged illusion. Once exposed, her beau escaped abroad, abandoning her to the fallout alone. His affluent kin deployed their wealth and clout to sever ties, pinning all blame on Simone. Stripped of funds, her allure withered, and burdened by supervised release plus crushing liabilities, she at last settled the tab for her plots and rapacity. Young Malik, orphaned of guardians, ended up in a welfare facility. On the other side, Mrs. Sterling, Darius's mom, upon hearing her sole child faced incarceration and her wealth had dissolved, buckled under the blow. A crippling stroke struck, paralyzing half her form and dooming her remaining time to a medical ward tended by caregivers. Her vision of a successor grandson and a wealthy bride to sustain her dissolved, replaced by anguish and remorse in a sterile chamber. All harvested the fruits of their deeds. The vortex of cupidity, treachery, and deceit imploded on itself, granting serenity to the blameless. Several months on, as the scandal's clamor faded, Aaliyah Thurston's days had fully realigned into a luminous, tranquil rhythm. She tuned out reports on that crowd. To her, they were utter outsiders now, remnants swept away by the breeze. She poured her focus into her dual endeavors, the gallery at the Pinnacle Arts Center and the revival of the Blue Ridge Threadworks Village. Guided by her vision, the Phoenix Rising Heritage Project soared beyond expectations. The Silk Village emerged renewed from ruin. Historic dwellings regained their timeless allure through careful refurbishment. The studios got updated. Ancient weaving machines hummed anew with the rhythm of shuttles. Aaliyah persuaded the community's remaining expert craftsfolk to remain, providing fair pay and a nurturing space to impart their fading skills. She launched no-cost workshops, drawing in eager youth, keen on the trade. The settlement evolved into a prime hub for Phoenix thread output and a captivating spot for heritage visitors. Beyond financial gains, the effort crucially breathed vitality back into a tradition teetering on oblivion. Phoenix thread's standing elevated further. More than elite attire, it embodied ethics and profound societal roots. The current Aaliyah had evolved utterly. Gone was the domestic drudge tied to chores or the armored executive forever guarding her ground. She struck an ideal harmony in her career, a firm commander, an imaginative creator. Beyond that realm, she reclaimed her essence. She savored moments with books, sipping tea, tending blooms. She journeyed solo to remote vistas, from the Rocky Mountains to Southern heritage hamlets, chasing muses and nurturing her spirit. She embraced an unbound, vibrant existence free of bonds. She was not Lou. She wasn't searching for romance anew, nor did solitude unsettle her. She had come to see that genuine joy stemmed not from any partner, but from the inner contentment and serenity of her soul. She had discovered an enhanced self, more resilient and joyful than before. Fall in Charleston, South Carolina, unfolds like a delicate painting in pastels. The amber foliage from the ancient live oaks drifts gently onto the aged patios. The graceful horseshoe arches mirror themselves in the calm pools. Aaliyah Thurston had journeyed there to oversee a handicraft initiative while drawing ideas for her upcoming line. Once her duties wrapped up, she indulged in a peaceful evening wandering the storied Battery, among the South's most renowned promenades along the shore. Draped in a flowing azure silk gown, with her locks cascading freely and a vintage film camera clutched in her grasp, she steered clear of the throngs, opting for secluded trails. She sensed the subtle balance among the buildings, the greenery, and the sea. Pausing on a modest span over a pool, observing the vibrant fish below, a voice, warm and recognizable, emerged from behind her. If I'm right, this is precisely how real creators spark their creativity. A flicker of astonishment lit Aaliyah's gaze as she pivoted. Mere paces off with a soft grin stood Quincy Davis. Gone was the executive attire. Instead, he sported a pale gray blazer and relaxed trousers. He appeared far removed from the head of a vast enterprise, more inviting and at ease. "Mr. Davis, what an unexpected meeting. Are you visiting Charleston as well?" Quincy drew nearer and rested against the balustrade next to her. "I've got a small inn development underway here. I drop by now and then to check progress and get away from New York's frenzy. Looks like our interests align." They fell quiet after that, merely absorbing the vista without a word. Yet the hush felt comfortable, not strained. Instead, it conveyed a mutual appreciation for each other's presence. Soon, Quincy spoke again. "That initiative of yours at Blue Ridge Village, I've caught wind of it. Such a purposeful undertaking. You're not just a skilled creator, you're someone with profound compassion." Aaliyah demurred. "I simply follow my instincts on what's just. Embroidery has bestowed so much on me. It was time to give back to its origins." They set off side by side along the twisting walkways and trimmed lawns. Their exchange steered clear of commerce or hefty deals. Instead, they delved into the heritage of Gula designs, the significance of those wrought iron fences, and the way sunlight and shade danced across the harbor from dawn to dusk. Quincy revealed a rich grasp of heritage and creativity. His insights always felt novel and captivating, and Aaliyah, through her creator's lens, spotted the understated grace and concealed sentiments in each nook that others might miss. They were like-minded souls, connecting through an intuitive harmony that needed few utterances. As they neared a chamber displaying woven panels, Quincy halted before one showing a lion, an eagle, and a stag, emblems of dignity and vigor. He turned to Aaliyah, his look intense and genuine. "Encountering you now, I finally grasp what elegance truly means. It arises not from haute couture or lavish accessories. It springs from enduring tempests, from the calm of releasing grudges. Miss Thurston, I hold you in the highest regard." His statement carried no superficial charm. It was authentic acknowledgement, a regard rooted in sincerity. For the first time, a gentleman perceived her essence and valued her, not as the affluent weaver of phoenix threads, but as Aaliyah Thurston herself. A soft, tender warmth bloomed in Alia's chest. She offered a subtle grin, one that shone as brightly as the fall sunlight. "Thank you, Mr. Davis." They avoided mentions of what lay ahead. No vows were exchanged. It was merely an evening of shared steps, exchanging views on aesthetics and existence. Yet amid the serene air of the Charleston Gardens, a subtle flame, grounded in empathy and esteem, seemed to flicker to life. Alia Thurston made her way back to her Greenwich Village estate one weekend evening. The amber hues of dusk poured in through the expansive pane, bathing the area in a warm glow. She brewed a vessel of jasmine brew, its fresh scent permeating the air. Holding the steaming mug, she lingered at the glass, gazing wordlessly at the urban panorama. The towering structures stood tall. Vehicles surged without pause. New York pulsed with its usual energy and clamor, yet the viewer's outlook had shifted entirely. In her thoughts, visions of Darius or Simone had vanished. Those figures, those chapters, had genuinely receded into history, akin to a bad dream that might linger in marks but no longer stung. She had mastered the art of pardon, not for them, but for her own sake, allowing her to advance unburdened. A brief recollection of that Charleston interlude, of the fellow with the penetrating eyes and aligned essence, brought a soft curve to her mouth. It was a lovely meeting. It was a prospect down the road, yet she held no expectations and felt no urgency. Her joy had outgrown the need for a partner at her side. Placing the cup aside, she ascended to the third floor, entering her secluded workspace. The room remained orderly and serene, infused with the scent of fresh silk and sandalwood that soothed her spirit. She moved toward a vacant easel supporting a ready pearwood frame. Opting away from vibrant hues, she selected a sheet of flawless white silk, premium grade and as gentle as an infant's touch. Using her elegant, delicate fingers, she meticulously secured the material onto the frame. Each action reflected skill and intent. The pristine cloth stretched taut and even, free of any creases, resembling an untouched sheet, eager for tales to unfold. Settling into her seat, she unlocked her thread case. Countless silk reels in every conceivable tint stood arranged and gleaming beneath the illumination. She took her time, not hurrying the selection, instead contemplating them quietly as visions and patterns emerged in her thoughts. What pattern would grace this silk? Perhaps a soaring fire phoenix, emblem of her renewal, a serene white magnolia, representing tranquility within, or an expansive vista of peaks and streams, evoking her liberation. The choice eluded her for now, and that was fine. She wasn't pressed to settle it immediately. Her existence mirrored that unmarred expanse. The form and shade it would assume rested solely on her decisions, crafted by her own touch. Picking a reel of turquoise thread, evoking optimism and fresh starts, she deftly loaded it onto the silver needle. Bathed in soft golden glow, Alia inclined slightly, posture upright, eyes intent. She drove the initial stitch into the immaculate silk, one followed by the next, deliberate, steady, brimming with assurance. Through her skilled hands, she was weaving the fabric of her destiny, a destiny radiant, unbound, and shaped by her will alone. Enjoy the tale. And from which spot are you tuning in? Drop by in the comments to connect. If the story resonated, show some love with a super thanks. It helps me deliver more narratives just like this. Grateful for your kind encouragement. Can't wait to hear your thoughts below. Check out the 2 fresh life tales on screen that I really suggest. Plenty more awaits on my channel. Hit subscribe if you haven't. Catch you in the upcoming story. Warm regards and appreciation.